everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, a show on the human stories behind indie game development. This is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, writer, game designer, and senior content manager in social media, as you guys already know. And this is Indie Diary number 66. With Kaizen Game Works. These guys are amazing. I've got three of them in this episode with me. I'll let them introduce themselves in a little bit, and we'll do the prologue segment. But before we get into the episode, as usual, I want to shout out to my amazing patrons, Zugini, Fishbomb Dev, and Peleg. Thank you guys for supporting me every single month. It makes a massive difference. Listeners, if you want to support me as well, gain access to episodes in advance and to live stream versions of the episode, uncut episode, there's a lot on patreon.com/theindiediarist that you can check out if you want to support the show, which is entirely listener supported and makes a massive difference, even just for as little as £1.25 per month. Which some might argue is less than the price of a coffee, but I don't drink coffee, so I wouldn't know. So yeah, well, let's get into the episode now, in the diary number 66 with Kaizen Game Works. Hello, I know it's unconventional. Here's another little note from me before the episode starts. Unfortunately, it looks like Ollie and Rachel's track had a little bit of an interference and some line disturbance issues. Basically, you will hear a faint, high-pitched whistle whenever they speak. I've silenced it for the rest of the track when they don't speak, and Phil's track is completely clean, so that shouldn't be a problem. But when Ollie and Rachel speak, then you will hear that high-pitched, faint whistle. I've tried to tone it down as much as possible with an equalizer, and the result is that their voice is a little bit less full. It's a bit more bass boosted, but hopefully that makes for an enjoyable experience throughout, because this is a very, very, very nice chat with Kaizen Game Works. So now I'll leave you to the episode. All right, hello everybody, hello and welcome to a new Indie Diary with your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony Wolf. As usual, you know about me, and today I have some very special guests from the indie game development community. I've got Kaizen Game Works. Well, actually, how do you say the name of your studio? I don't want to butcher it, so I'll let one of you say it for me.
It is Kaizen Game Works.
Kaizen Game Works. Okay, perfect. So I was almost there, I guess. But yeah, I'm here with Ollie, Rachel, and Phil from Kaizen Game Works. They got in touch. They wanted to they wanted to be present on the show and just tell their story. So now we're going to talk about that and go straight into the episode. But first, let me hand it over to you guys. So where are you based? What are you working on? And yeah, basically, what is your game about?
We are Kaizen Game Works. I'm Ollie, the game director, and Rachel. I'm here with Rachel, who is our art director, and Phil, our tech director, and we're all in the UK. Rachel and I are down near Guildford, and Phil is in
Leamington, Coventry area.
Okay.
Oh, and our game, yes, right, wonderful. Hello. So we are
the game, yeah.
We're currently making Promise Mascot Agency. This is our second game. We're all from AAA game dev in the past, and Phil and I formed Kaizen back in 2018, and we made our first game, an open world murder mystery Paradise Killer, and now we're working on our second game, Promise Mascot Agency. We are deep into development. We are releasing sometime this year, and it's going pretty well.
Okay, I love this sometime this year. So it's ready when it's ready. The nice Blizzard philosophy, love that. Okay, well then, as you know, as I've anticipated during our email conversations and such, this is a podcast about, the human stories behind indie game development. It's all about the storytelling, the stories behind the games. And so I want to start with a little prologue section. I'm going to try to, I'm going to ask you as many questions as I can in 60 seconds, and I want you guys to try and answer as many as you can. Now, since we have 3 guests here, it's the first time I do the prologue section with 3 guests, I think we can take turns. So I know, Rachel, that you were like, okay, let's Ollie take the stage. Let's let Ollie take the stage. But Phil, also you want to take part. So I think we can take turns. So maybe I can start with Phil and we can move to Ollie and then back to Phil and then to Ollie, or whoever jumps in first. Up to you, whatever you want to do it. But let's follow the turns first. And I have about 10 questions here. Let's see how many we can get in 60 seconds. Are you ready and pumped up?
Yep.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, so timer starts in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so what's the first game you ever fell in love with? Phil first.
Probably Monkey Island.
Okay, Ollie, do you want to say yours?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Hero Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan on Game Boy.
Okay, love it. Okay, perfect. If you could only play one genre for the rest of your life, what would it be? Ollie?
Survival horror.
Survival horror. Okay, Phil?
Hack and slash action style, like Bayonetta, Ninja Gaiden, that kind of thing.
Oh, I love that. Okay, what's the most underrated game everyone needs to play? Whoever wants to jump in first.
God Hand.
Okay.
I was going to jump to Ghostwire Tokyo. I don't know why that came to my mind.
Okay, yeah, well, we can. That's fine. Okay, now pitch your game in one sentence. I guess this is one for Phil, maybe.
Okay. You recruit mascot friends, exploring a cursed Japanese town, and become the #1 mascot agency in Japan in an open-world mascot management crime drama.
Okay, perfect. And lastly, what's your guilty pleasure game? Something you love but know isn't perfect.
Burnout Paradise.
Okay. I think, Burnout Paradise. That's a nice one. I love it. Okay, well, we are a little bit over 60 seconds. We're probably at 1 minute and 10. But I wanted to ask that last question. So yeah, well, how are you guys feeling? Was that fun? Was that exciting?
That was good. I had some anxiety about that. I didn't know quite what the questions were going to be. Are we going to delve deep into childhood trauma? Are we going to talk about video
not
games?
in 60 seconds. Not in 60 seconds, but we'll get there in the longer episode. So that's okay. Well, thank you guys. It's been amazing. Lovely to do it with more than one guest. Maybe for the future, if I have more than one, I'll lengthen to 90 seconds. That feels like it makes more sense. But still, we got through most of the questions. I won't tell you what the other ones were. So yeah, I'll keep the mystery maybe for people back home for next episodes. But yeah, so now the prologue is done. We can now relax, take a big breath. Deep breath, and we can get into chapter 1, which I like to call the origins. So we can, of course, again, take turns. You can decide who wants to answer what, but you could also, each one of you could answer every single one of the questions that I'm going to ask. So let's start from the beginning to try and start to understand how you got into game development. So what's your earliest or fondest memory that has to do with video games?
Video game development specifically, my dad had a BBC computer, one of the BBC Micros, and he started doing some stuff on it to try and get shares and stuff downloaded. Anyway, he built this extra bit of memory to go on it, and realised he could do stuff a bit more, programming work on it. And I must have been about 5 or so, and he sat down with me and we made a little dinosaur game on it, and a dinosaur just went across, and all it did was eat whatever tree happened to be in front of it. But at the time, that felt magical because my dad had some graph paper and he sort of drew a dinosaur, blocky dinosaur, and then it was on screen. So that's pretty amazing. And it took me a long time to actually do anything on my own after that point. But that was that's my first proper memory of seeing how a video game becomes a thing.
That's a lovely little memory. And also I like that you brought it back to game development, because most people just say, oh no, the first game that I played was, but yeah, connected to game development. This is a very interesting little story and also something unique. And I don't feel like I've heard about a dinosaur game as the first approach to game development before. But it makes a lot of sense.
It a bit. There's a dinosaur on screen.
Yeah, a dinosaur on screen. Okay, great. Ollie and Rachel, if you want to chip in.
My first gaming memory is when I fell in love with the game was that, as I said in the quickfire round, Teenage Turtles on the Game Boy. Someone showed. I'd never seen a game before. Someone showed me that, and that just blew my head off as a child. And then from there, it's been a dark path into the rest of video games and game development.
Okay.
Mine would be playing Lemmings on floppy disk.
Lemmings.
On my family computer. That was our first game, I think. And Settlers, I think one of the Settlers games we had, so we were very into those, and we used to fight over the computer with all my siblings. I'd like to see who was going to play it that day.
I always found Lemmings very fascinating and relaxing, and I like the concept. Like, I think one really good, well, at least based on the demo that I played, one really good Lemming style game that came out recently is Humanity. I think that's
saying that.
That's really interesting. I really liked it. And the concept that you have the dog that guides all the humans, and also there's a little bit of a dystopian undertone there. So I always like those. Yeah, so this question can be answered collectively, I suppose. You can maybe chip in or have a conversation about it. But do you think those early games influenced the kind of experiences you're making for players now and the games that you're developing now?
I think for me, like the early game that has influenced what we're doing now is stuff like Resident Evil 2 and Metal Gear Solid, because of the world building that they did and that sense of being in a place and secrets to find, things to unlock, and like constant player surprise. So like, our game on the surface doesn't look like those games, and it certainly doesn't play like those, but I think that spirit and the types of worlds and like approach to humor and kind of silliness that those games have, even though they're ostensibly quite serious subject matter, I think that's what we tend to do.
Okay.
When you're young, you play a game and anything could happen, right? Your imagination just goes wild because you don't know what the constraints are. And I think we like to put that in our world. Like, our worlds, they're not played really straight. Like, anything could happen in there. So we really like to surprise the player. And that influence has got to be in there. If it makes us sort of go, yeah, that's cool, or I didn't expect that to be in the game, then it's a wonderful thing.
Great, yeah. I think subverting expectations is important, because right now, I mean, there's so many games coming out and they all try to do their own creative thing. So if you can do something unique that lets the player gets the player to go, oh wow, or wow, that's surprising, that's something I wasn't expecting, and then leaves them with that kind of memory, that's always special. Okay, but this again is a question for all of you. Like, maybe I know the question from based on Phil's story, but when did you realize you wanted to make games? And was there like a haha moment, a light bulb moment? Like for Phil, I don't know if that was when you saw the dinosaur move a screen and you said, oh yeah, I'd like to do this one day. But it could be, so who knows?
No, I mean, I at the time, I think it was just cool. Like, it's a computer. Like, computers are cool. That's what I thought at the time. I think the first time I wanted to make games, and I don't know if you remember this, Ollie, but we must have been like in our teenage years, and I got hold of a game engine. I mean, it was an open source one, but didn't have the internet at the time, so I got it on a disc that came with a book.
Okay. And
just put something in there, and sort of all this code came up, and I didn't know what I was doing, but just hacked away, and I managed to put in I think a proximity mine or a sticky mine or something like that. And Ollie came around and just started coming up with ideas of what he would do with it, and nothing ever came of that. But to me, that started feeling like maybe that is something we could do. But it wasn't until university. In fact, I didn't go to university for games. I went for something else. But when I graduated, my very first interview was with Sony. And I thought, it'd be awesome to make games. That'd be amazing. And it was awful. An atrocious interview. I completely failed it because I didn't have the game-specific knowledge. They were asking about, like, various pathfinding algorithms and stuff. And I just didn't know that stuff at the time. So it really put me off until Ollie and I started talking about it again a few years later.
It's actually an interesting day to be recording this episode, because my first job making games was testing Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness, and I didn't know I wanted to make games. I just had to get a job because Phil and I used to be in a band together. Phil went off to uni, and I was starting up like a DIY punk record label and doing punk show promotions. So I just needed a job for the daytime to fund what I wanted to do in the evening, and the job I got was testing this Tomb Raider game. And as soon as I got into that studio and started testing, I was like, well, that's it. We can throw punk in the bin. That is done. We do video games now, and today is when the remaster of the first game I ever worked on comes out.
On Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for the record, for listeners back home that are listening to this one like way after we record it, we are recording this on Valentine's Day. So yeah, happy Valentine's Day in delayed, I suppose. But yeah. And what about you, Rachel? Like, what got you into games?
I got into games quite late, actually. I was just working a retail job when I was about 25-ish, and then one day I met all of Ollie's friends, and I was always into art. I always thought I was never a career in art, and then we were at a party and I met a load of your pals that were like environment artists, character artists, VFX artists, so I was like, whoa, hang on, you're telling me there's a career in this? Yeah, I was like 26, and then I kind of decided after that I was going to self-teach art, and then learned at home, and then got my first job working on Assassin's Creed Chronicles.
Nice.
Which was like a little hand-painted, stylized version of Assassin's Creed set in China, Russia, and India.
Yeah, remember that. Great. Okay. Very, very interesting. But now, actually, I want to. We're heading into chapter 2, which is more about the development side of things, like the more technical side of things, I suppose. But I want to focus on. We're getting closer to the present, of course, and then want to focus on something that you, Phil, said, which is maybe Ollie. You remember we were teenagers. How long have you guys been knowing each other for? And what made you choose to do a game together?
We've known each other about 25 years now, I think.
Holy crap.
Very long time. We've had, Ollie said we were in the band together. Ollie was my best man at my wedding. I was Ollie's best man.
Oh, okay.
It's been a proper long, good friendship. Probably based, someone asked me the other day what the first games we played together. And I think a lot of our friendship was built around playing games together. I used to go to Ollie's house all the time and play loads of games. Sorry, I kind of forgot the question.
How did you well, I mean, I suppose that this kind of answers the question already. Why did you decide to do a game together? How did that happen? But you just
after uni I worked I didn't work in games for a little while, and then I was really jealous of Ollie and some of Ollie's friends working in games. And I had this itch to do it. And then we decided to make a mobile game together, which was called Wonton 51. And it was right at the time when smartphones came out. I think it was the iPhone 3G or 3, whatever it was, iPhone 3. The first one you could properly put apps onto. And we thought we'd make a game with that. And it took us 9 months in our evenings to make this game. And I really, really liked the process. And after that, I thought, I'm going to go work in the industry. So I got a job making games for other studios. But there's just this itch, really, really always wanted to go back to making our own thing, to putting our own personality into games. And I can't imagine doing it with anyone else. It's just, I think it was always there. It was just waiting for the right time to make it happen.
That was going to be my next question. If you ever could imagine doing games with someone else, but clearly not.
I could make them. I don't think that was cool. It's I think because I'm very kind of technical and quite straight with it, and Ollie's really creative, and then we bring Rachel on, who's got this the creative and the art side of things as well, and together it's just I'm really happy with where we are. We're a small studio, but I think we do big things with that.
Seems like a very tight knit studio anyway, so that's really good. You guys seem very close. That's very, very nice. Okay, right. So after all these years working together, either in a band or in games, you must have faced some challenges together, like development challenges, or even just any kind of project management challenges, whatnot. So what do you think is a big development challenge that you guys have overcome altogether, maybe? And how do you think it's shaped your approach to game development from that point on?
I think the biggest thing was just actually shipping a game that people wanted to play, that was still something that we wanted to make. It's when Phil and I started Kaizen, I had come from AAA, where putting your personality and certainly putting the stuff that I wanted to in a game was completely forbidden, and it was the director's way or the highway. And then Phil had come from mobile, which was very similar, it's metrics designed video game.
Yeah.
And I certainly felt by the time we got to making our game pretty beaten down, and confidence taken a real hit, because I've worked at a number of companies where it was no, don't do that, you're wrong, we're not going to do this, we're going to do it this utterly pedestrian way or whatever. And And so then it took some like real effort to make Paradise Killer, which is, for anyone that hasn't seen it, it's a big vaporwave open world murder mystery with full of like grotesque demons and very high fashion characters, and it kind of explodes open what a narrative game design is and makes it completely freeform and very unconventional in how it plays, but so that took a lot of effort to kind of prove that was worthwhile. The actually shipping the game, like we having come from like I always think of it as like having a proper job, because I worked in AAA dev for like 15 years before starting the company, near enough, and like that was my mentorship. Like I learned how to ship a video game, like what is important, what is not important, and Phil had done the same thing with really fast iteration and shipping on mobile games. And so it meant that we had builds up and running, and we kind of like that side of it was very efficient and well done, where I think it's like something that other teams struggle with. And it meant that like our dev challenges was A, finding a publisher, and then B, kind of bashing an unconventional game design into a shipping product. And then for Mascots, our second game, it's a much bigger game. It's big. We didn't do 3D characters in PK, but we're doing them in this, and we've got like 50 characters all having to be animated and cutscenes being made, and like whole new game systems and open world, and trying to do that on the Switch and all of this stuff. And so like the big challenge was just more. It was just more and more and more. And then also PK was very like there was no limit. Like it wasn't grounded at all. It was a fantasy world, but this time we wanted to pull it back and ground it in the real world. And I'm quite extreme with some of my creative desires, and like that took some time to kind of rein that in and still get the weirdness in, and working with Rachel to be like, okay, that's too much. We need to bring this back and ground it and make it what it is now, because we think that this game isn't actually that weird, but then when everyone sees it, they're like, this is really weird and I don't understand what's happening. And so
weirder.
Yeah, so it's still working, it's still what we want, but it's easy to lose sight of that.
We've just had previews come in just a few days before we record this, and some of them are calling out just how weird it is. We thought, well, we thought this was kind of normal.
We thought it was kind of normal, but it's an interesting thing that you bring up there. It's like a matter of perception, isn't it? Isn't it? Like so there's always that thing about what you perceive once you're in the project. Like you're basically living and breathing the project itself, and then what other people see it when they approach it for the first time. And maybe you guys are just weird by nature. Who knows?
I think so. We have a lot of different tastes, and we don't. Everything that we like goes into our games.
It's weird as well because, like in AAA, obviously you don't really get that. Like you have a million people looking at the game at all times, saying, "No, this has gone too far." So then I feel like you do, as an indie team, kind of sometimes end up in your own echo chamber, which is good because it means that your stuff's kind of more distilled, like to you and like your personality. But then you haven't got that committee saying, "Oh no, you've gone too far."
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's been the big adjustment for me.
You don't have a board of producers and investors just wanting to rein you in. And Phil, I believe you were about to say something as well.
I was just going to say that like people call the game weird, and I think it is, as Ray said, it's a collection of our personalities. But the weird stuff is not weird for the sake of weird. It's not like, oh, we've got to do something crazy. It's everything's grounded. And Ollie and Rachel do a great job of making sure that stuff is grounded. So it might sound weird on its own, but when you encounter it in game, it's weird in a joyful way, not weird in a trying to be quirky way.
And also in its own context,
really
I guess.
Important, yeah. In the context of the game, everything fits, and it's surprising rather than weird. I think that's my issue with it. When people say weird, to me that's like trying to be weird, and for us it's perhaps surreal or more just strange or unusual. But yeah, it's I like how they come together, and it does take a while to get to that point, like to make sure everything coalesces. But I'm really happy with where we are in this, and I'm really happy with where we got to on Paradise Killer.
Great. And I think this conversation is actually a nice segue into what I was going to ask you next, which is what has been one of the most memorable reactions someone has had to your game, do you think?
To the current game, I think...
Could be even a past game, to be fair.
I mean, you're probably better to answer that one, Rach, because you monitor what people online say.
I'm trying to think. Like my favourite personally is when people found out that Takara Kuroda, aka Kiryu Kazuma from Yakuza, is voicing our main character. I think people lost their minds, and I felt like I was playing a joke on everyone because we were putting out videos of a game without any voices for ages, and when we finally did it, I was like, got you. People lost their mind. I really enjoyed that day. That was really fun.
Love it. Okay.
But as for when people played it, I don't know, like every time someone sees a character and said that's my character, that's my favourite, like that makes my heart grow really big. It's like, oh, that's our baby, and yeah, it's really sweet.
Very few people have played it at the time that we're recording this, so we're looking forward to getting more people hands on. But when people play it, like there's always a fear when someone plays your game, like they're not going to get it, but it's just whenever someone comes back and they just call out the thing they enjoyed, whatever it is, like a particular character or whatever, it feels like, oh, they got it. They know what we're doing with this. And It's much easier to be confident in that now on the second game, because on the first game, we had no idea if people would be into whatever we're making. But now we know people can be into that. So, just anyone enjoying it. That's all I'm looking for.
Great. Mm-hmm. And yeah, about things that you're looking for and the things that make you proud, I think this question can be asked to every single one of you, and everybody will have a different answer most likely. So what is one thing in your game that you're particularly proud of, and why? It can be a story beat, it can be the mechanic, it can be a piece of art, a character, anything. Maybe we'll start with Rach this time.
I was just going to say, like, probably it's kind of cheating, so it's not one thing, but just the amount that we've managed to do, I think, with a small team. Like, that's like, I think we've all trusted each other loads, and we've just all done so much. And when I look at it, I'm like, how on earth is a handful of people, not being full of ourselves, but like, I'm really proud of the amount of stuff that we've managed.
You know what? It counts. I like that. Yeah, it's a good answer. Yeah, I don't think it's cheating at all. Anyone else?
There's some late game story beats in Promise. Obviously, I cannot divulge because they are late game, but every time I play them, I get the chills because I think they hit the emotions that we were going for, and they play with, certainly the second one, plays with game mechanics and what you've done in the game in a really fun way, and it has some meta stuff going on with it there, and that thing, it was a risky thing to do because I think it could fall flat for people, but certainly when I play it, every time, and I have to test it a lot, I still have a really good reaction to it, so I'm proud that we managed to carry that off.
I think I always love when games do that, and I think, if you get it, other people will get it too, I'm pretty sure. That is another thing, like that I've learned by doing like small games here and there and little projects. Like if you get it, maybe there's someone who gets the value as well. There's someone out there who this game is made for. This game is made for, maybe. But I always love when games do that. They play with the mechanics to just create an emotion. I will always remember that. And spoiler ahead, if you haven't played Brothers, tell me. Okay.
I don't think any of us have. But I don't
okay, great. But there's a moment in Brothers where you're basically playing as, well, in that game, it's from the same guys. I believe it's from the same guys who made It Takes Two and A Way Out and now Split Fiction. And that was, I think, either their first or their second game. But you play as two brothers there. You control them simultaneously, one with a left stick and one with a right stick. And you just go around the levels. But at some point, something happens, and you can only control one. But using the mechanics that the developers have envisioned for the game, it's a very, very powerful moment when the two have to split. So yeah, it's that I will always remember. Yeah, and I guess now we're on to you, Phil. Something you're very proud of.
I mean, what Rach said, I really want to echo that. I'm really proud of what we've done with the team. But if I'm picking a mechanic, I would say it's the truck. So in the game, you largely you do drive around the truck. That's your way of navigating the world. And I'm really, really happy with how we've got that feeling, because it's an old K truck, so it's got to feel old and clunky, but it's got to feel fun at the same time. So you've got to have it kind of difficult to get up a hill, at least in the early stage of the game, but also nimble. And you've got to go off road, so it's got to be kind of feel like you're tackling this stuff, but not get stuck in too much. And I think we've got a really nice point with it, which has taken a lot of iteration. But to me now, I know I play it a lot, so I fly around quite easily. But it feels like a nice mix of, oh yeah, I'm driving an old truck, but nothing's going to stop me. That feels great.
Right, and we are near the end now. This episode is going very fast, but then we're now into chapter 3, which is all about reflections and looking back, but also even thinking about your current. Your present, basically, I suppose. So this is a question that I always like to ask everybody. My listeners know I love it, because every single time it gives me the chills to hear people answer it. So why are you guys game developers? What drives you forward? And Phil, I mean, you mentioned that an itch, so maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, I work in games because I love them. I don't know, just bringing joy to the world. Like you're making something that other people can really enjoy. I love being part of that. But the reason I co-founded Kaizen is because I wanted to put something back into the world as well. Like take some of my own personality experience and put that out there and be a real meaningful part of creating that joy.
Okay. Lee?
Yeah, I think I've always been someone that made stuff. Like as a kid, I used to write my own rule systems for miniature games and role-playing games and stuff. So I think I've always done that. And then, like, this is just how I express the creative side of myself to the world. And like Phil says, is to put joy back into the world and to give something back to the world, but especially to try and make the world a better place. Like our games and our stories in the games are. There are themes and messages about our current world and the awfulness of it, but it's not something that we beat you over the head with. It's just like when we made Paradise Killer, we started making that in 2018, and after that we were partway through the first Trump presidency. Our country had voted for Brexit. Everyone was coming around to the fact that the planet is dying through climate change, and so it's awful, an awful world to live in. So we wanted to make a game where you can go and hang out on a tropical island and have some kind of getaway and escape, but still have a very gamey game to enjoy and to kind of really get your teeth into as the world goes to hell. And in that game it was full of messages about, full of themes about, the kind of people that make this world a worse place, and the kind of like methods of governance that have really set fire to this world. And I think it worked really well in providing an escape for people to go and enjoy and get their teeth into a kind of a meaty game, but it still had these themes in that they weren't preachy, they weren't dogmatic, they were there if you wanted to look at it. And we actually had someone the other day get at us on Twitter and say how much they were enjoying the game, and we clicked through to their profile, and that dude was a Nazi, but he was playing our game, which is firmly anti-Nazi. Like, we could not be any more clear about that.
Okay.
But this person was enjoying our game, and to be clear, I wish Nazis would not play our game, but they were enjoying our game, and hopefully, like, our game and the messages in it, we're helping to make them better, if you know what I mean. Like, it's an extreme example, but we've had so many people reach out to us resonating with the themes, and like, even if someone like that can play our game, and we're not beating them around the head with it, but they can still pick up on these things, maybe we have made that person slightly better somehow. fingers crossed.
It's about leaving something for others, and as Phil said, creating something for others that others can pick up on and also just creating meaningful moments. So yeah, who knows, maybe you did you did achieve that. And Rachel?
I was going to kind of mention like what you said, like when we launched Paradise Killer, and then in the like kind of worst of COVID times, we got a lot of messages from people saying, "Oh, thank you, this came at the right time because I'm kind of stuck indoors, but I get to like just vibe in a tropical island, and that was really nice. But I think the other kind of thing I love about kind of working in games is, I guess, like I like working in a team, and it's really cool to all have like game dev is just like puzzle solving all the time, and I just love like for the most part everyone's like lovely in game development, and it's just really cool to all get together and just work on problems together and like, you know, work as a team and then build something that's the sum of everyone and then put that in the world as like, yes, we did that, like, and then seeing how people respond to it is just like that kind of I guess the human connection, but through making something together is just really special, and I love it.
It's a very special feeling, isn't it? Yeah, I get loads of people say the same thing, so yeah. And guys, well, collectively, what do you think has been the toughest part of your journey so far, and how did you push through it? We kind of touched upon it. What? Sorry?
just releasing a game. Like, it's really, really tough. Like, making games is hard. Making your own game, putting it out there, that is real hard. But I think we push through it because we're all quite determined people. We want to get this thing out there. We want it to be our lives and our career and whatnot. I don't think there's necessarily anything in particular that's like, well, that's the one hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. I think it is just a very hard collective experience. It's the sum of so many little things. And the first game was hard because no one knew who we were, no one knew what we were doing. Second game is hard because there's a bigger expectation on it, because the first game did so well. It's just, it's tough to make a game, and these days it's tough to finance a game and things as well. So it is just hard. So anyone who's doing it, congratulations. It's, keep going, because it's worth it. It's when people play it and enjoy it, it's well worth it. But it is not the easy thing 5-year-old me thought it would be.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose you guys agree, Ollie and Rachel. So yeah.
I think this game's. We've all made a bunch of games in our careers. This game has been the hardest game I've ever made. Not the worst project, but the hardest project. And
I think it's going to be always that way, isn't it? Like it's just how it goes. Every time you just do something a little bit more complex and it becomes harder and harder, but it's always worth it, isn't it? So, yeah.
Absolutely. I'm so happy with what we've made, and this project was just really hard because we didn't understand the proper scope of it, and we didn't understand quite how much it would take to get from, a feature going into final. And especially because this game has so many interlocking mechanics. You touch something over here, and then the thing over here is affected and potentially breaks, and it's that has provided us a lot of trouble over the last 4 years. But it coalesced about a year ago and into a proper structure and a proper experience, and that's when it came together and the magic really started to happen.
I've heard about that moment many times, like that moment when everything starts coming together and you start seeing the game for what you actually are envisioning it to be. I've kind of experienced it myself, but like with small jam games, it's not really the same as with one big game that takes several years to make. So yeah, I've always wondered what it must feel like to just, when something clicks and suddenly you're playing the game and you're like, this is how it's supposed to be. Finally, we're getting there. Must be the best feeling ever, I'm sure.
It's a proper satisfying moment. Yeah. Like, you switch from going like, switching between these things going, oh, this is all right. And then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, this is all right. Like, it's just, it goes from being passable, and it's suddenly like, oh, that works in this, and that feels good. And I think there's a point where it's more that feels good than the other. And from that point on, you can see how to fix all the problems, whereas you're just faced with a pile before that.
Okay. It's been through the matrix, isn't it? It just kind of all clears and you're like, all of a sudden it makes sense and you can see the end, but for like ages beforehand you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how we're going to do this.
Yeah, no, I've heard it many times. Okay, well guys, we are near the end. I've only got one last question for you. These are indie diaries. It's all about leaving something behind for others and telling your story. So if this were your final diary entry, or if this were just the only diary entry that you could do, what is one message you would leave for players or for other developers?
For other developers, it is trust your players. That's something that we started doing with PK, because I've worked on a bunch of games where we did not the producers above us would not trust players, and when we did Paradise Killer, that was one of our big design pillars, was just we will go hands off and let you solve this crime in your own way, but that means we have to trust that a player will pick up what we're putting down and get on with it. And we didn't do pop-up tutorials, we didn't do a lot of hand holding and breadcrumb trails. We just dumped you in the world and said get on with it, and we just have to trust in the player. And we have a more linear story in this current game, but there's still a lot of things like systems that interact, story that affects the systems that affect the story, and we've done lots of iteration on the messaging around it, but ultimately it comes down to just trust in the player, because as soon as you start holding their hand, the magic disappears. And I think players, especially the kind of game players that pick up our style of game, they're happy to just figure stuff out themselves.
Yeah, you break immersion. It becomes like kind of robotic mechanic to even go through the game and finish it, rather than being fully immersed in the experience. I totally agree. Yeah. Rachel or Phil?
I'd just say one of the things that I've kind of struggled a lot with in game development is confidence, and I'd just say even if you're not confident, just pretend that you are.
Yeah.
And go with whatever you feel, because you're usually right in the first place.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, listen to other people, but trust your gut, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because there's been times where I've doubted mine, and then usually it works out okay in the end.
You know more than you think. Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with what you said, Ollie, about trusting players, especially because a lot of people say, oh yeah, audiences are dumb. Even in marketing, they say audiences are dumb. They just don't understand. No, they're not.
Yeah, they're really clever.
They're really clever, yeah.
People are wonderful people, wonderful things that can solve all sorts of problems. And if you think that you need more hand-holding in your game because players don't understand your game, you don't. You need to better explain what is there. And
maybe the problem is the game.
Not the same as hand-holding,
Yeah, maybe the problem is in the game design, not in the players. So yeah, that's a good point there. And Phil?
I would say just find the thing you love and believe in. So if you're a developer, make the games you love. If you're a player, try out a bunch of games, see which ones you like, and just really enjoy them. Cast a net wide. There's so many out there. Something will speak to you. Find it, and if that inspires you to make a game, go and make a game using those inspirations.
Amazing. Okay. Right, guys. It's time for the epilogue now, of course, keeping the theme of the diary alive. Where can other people find you? And if they do, what's the best way to support you?
So you can buy our previous game, Paradise Killer, on Steam and all platforms, actually. And you can go and wishlist Promise Mascot Agency on Steam and PlayStation and Xbox and Epic. Switch you can't wishlist yet because the store page isn't up, but when it is, run, don't walk to the Switch eShop. You can find us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Kaizen Game Works, on Instagram and TikTok as well. We've got a
subreddit. We're everywhere. You have to try and yourself nowadays.
YouTube, just search Kaizen Game Works and you will find us. And then, please hit the wishlist button. Really helps.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for such a lovely episode together. I think we touched on a lot of interesting themes. I'm going to struggle to find just one clip to publish on socials from this because, there's just so much. Loved it every single moment. But wishing you the best of luck with Promise Mascot Agency. I'm definitely going to try the game myself because it sounds so interesting and also up my alley. And I'm going to also take a look at your previous games too, because it seems like you have something interesting going on there as well. But best of luck. I'm sure players are going to love it. And yes, I mean, what else can I say? Thank you for wanting to be on the show.
Thank you very much for having us and giving us an opportunity to speak nonsense about mascots.
That's all good. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, and that's a wrap with a nice and beautiful bow on another episode of the Indie Diaries podcast. Indie Diaries and Indie Diary number 66. Thank you, Kaizen Game Works, for wanting to come onto the show. It was such a beautiful conversation touching upon everything from creativity to first experiences in game dev. It was just amazing. And what a beautiful and inspiring friendship you guys have, Phil, Ollie, and Rachel. Such a tight-knit group. loved speaking to you guys, and I wish you the best of luck with Promise Mascot Agency, which I'm going to definitely try once the demo comes out. Now, about that, there is a demo now available on Steam. You can go and try out the game. By the time the episode is out, the demo will be out as well. You can try the game yourself. You can try other games from Kaizen Game Works, and of course, check out the links in the description of the show so that you can check them out and just show them all the support that you can. Now, if you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the show, leave a rating, follow on Spotify, on socials, everywhere you can. You can find me at The Indie Diaries pretty much everywhere. I'm most active on Threads and Blue Sky right now. Yes, I also have a YouTube channel where these episodes are re-uploaded. And also sometimes you can find some gameplay videos whenever I get the time to do something with video, actually, which is not a given these days. But yeah, other than that, please go to patreon.com to check out my amazing tiers. And if you're an indie game developer yourself, do get in touch, because I would love to tell your story to my amazing listeners. Speak to you next time.